Hi, are you struggling with taking forever to design your new pages and screens for your business? Well, in this lesson, we're learning all about wireframes. So you're going to learn how to use wireframes to design pages and learning apps. So that way you can hone in on your key messages and features, lock in on your new designs, and create faster with less iterations. Hi, I'm Angel from RT Course Experts, and we help creative online course teachers with their tech. In this lesson, we're learning all about wireframing. What is it? Why use it? How to use it? And then we'll go over a tutorial. Finally, we'll summarize all our top tips. First of all, what is a wireframe? It's a low fidelity blueprint of a screen design showing headings, images, sections, and buttons, almost like a coloring book. It doesn't have the detailed words, it doesn't have the final image, but it does display exactly that there's this heading, there's these two images, there's these three important buttons, there's this nav bar. You're figuring out the high level design. It's almost like a blueprint for a house. And you're agreeing that these are the essential features that your house needs. Except in your case, you're building a sales page for your course, or maybe you're building the interface for your community. Now, why do you want to use wireframes? Maybe you're thinking, I'm not a designer, or I'm creative. I teach music, I teach writing, I teach sewing, but nevertheless, wireframes is an important skill for you to know as a creative business owner. Whether you're doing it or somebody else on your team is doing it, you need to be familiar with wireframes so that you can use it to design your different interfaces. By using wireframes, they're going to allow you to quickly and cost effectively help design the most essential customer experience elements. You're going to have crystal clear accuracy on what your home page is going to look like. What are the key things on your coaching page or your sales page or your community help page? You're going to know for any of these different use cases, what are the most important things there? Is there a search bar? Is there a buy button? How many buy buttons? You don't need to figure out the exact text at this point. You just want to make sure that there's this big picture, there's an overview, there's that first buy button, you provide more information, there's a second buy button, whatever it is that you're designing. By you either figuring out a wireframe as a business owner or working with an artist or a designer, for their very first step is to come up with a wireframe for this thing that you need. You review the wireframe, that's the high level plan. Figure that out, right? Before you're fighting with colors and which fonts and what's the text and change this, before you even get into all those details, you take it up a level and you figure out the wireframe for whatever it is that you're trying to design. It's just a couple of big boxes. You're figuring it out, you're looking at it, maybe you're exchanging back and forth with PDF, or you're providing some simple notes. Oh, I want the FAQs lower, or ooh, I think we need another buy button on the bottom. Whatever it is, you're going to go back and forth, very high level. You're not figuring out the color of the buy button, the shape of the buy button, the shadow. Forget about that stuff. You're just figuring out the most essential thing is that you need a buy button as an example. Wireframes are going to be awesome. They're going to help you go faster. You're going to lock in on those high level, most important things that you need on all your screens. And once you have that ironed out, then you're just filling in, just like a coloring book. You're going to fill it in. Let's get into a how-to guide on wireframes. First thing you're going to do is you're going to specify text holders for headings, paragraphs, bulleted lists, even labels like your username and password. Those are text. You don't have to figure out the exact words, the capitals, all that stuff. Just know at this part of the screen, there's this giant big text. It's the heading, it's the introduction, or hey, here's a little paragraph. So you don't have to figure out the exact paragraph to copy. And by the way, remember, that could come from somebody else. It might be you as the business owner, or it might be a marketing or a copywriter that you get to help you out. Figuring out the layout with the wireframe, that's essential. The designer may not have the right text or they may copy text from somewhere else. You want to decouple these things. You're going to have the big layout of what goes where. In phase two, you fill in the text, the image, etc. The next thing is the media, the high level images. Do you have a big image on the page? If you do, by the way, you're just going to see a box, maybe with an X in it, or maybe a generic image. So that's just letting you know that, hey, there's this big image there, and you're going to figure out the general shape. Is it widescreen? Is it a square? Is it tiny, like a little thumbnail? Are there 4 or 5 of these? It might be that there's a video. You're not going to choose the video. You might already kind of know it, but that's okay. At this point, you're just figuring out that there's a big image here. There's these 3 little images. There's this little logo thing on the top left. That's what you want to figure out. You're not going to figure out the details, which logo you're going to use. You're just going to say, hey, I got a logo over here. I got an image over here, or a video area. There's a big square with a play button. That's all you need for now. You're just trying to figure out, do you start off in widescreen mode, or is your video in a small little box? Your students need to maximize it later. So you're just trying to figure out all these things. Where are the different media, the different images? Maybe you have an audio bar or a video. You're just trying to lay them all out in your big screen or your mobile screen. Next, you're going to want to use controls. So these are the common controls that you find on every operating system, whether you're on a Mac or Windows or mobile, whatever they are. And you're not going to draw it exactly the way it's going to come out and it's going to look on the latest Apple iOS. That doesn't matter. The point is that you're going to identify, hey, here's a button, or here's an edit box where you type your username, or here's a list box. Choose one or more of these items, or click a button to do a drop down, and then you're going to choose an item. That's all that matters. So you're going to have these generic user controls laid out on your screen. Others might include checkboxes or radio buttons. If this were a coaching blog, you would have thumbnails next to a title of your blog article and then kind of a snippet. You would have that pattern repeated. You're not going to draw the real thumbnail. You're not going to have 3 examples. If you really want that, that's kind of a next step after wireframing. Once you figure out the blueprint, you can color it in and check it out. Next, don't worry about backgrounds, fonts, colors, styles, or theming. This is a wireframe. It's a bunch of boxes. It's letting you know what goes where. Don't worry about, oh, this font is bigger, or this font is the secondary font, not that first Google font or whatever, or which color, it's the secondary purple. That doesn't matter. Just get all your content there. You don't really care at this stage on the wireframe how thick your lines are, or if there's shadows or animations. That's not essential right now. Next, you may want to create multiple wireframes to show different options, option A versus option B. These are just different approaches to laying out these screens. You may also want to have different wireframes for each stage. For example, let's just say they're buying your online course. So the first wireframe that you should design is your sales page. Then the next wireframe is your checkout page. That shows, maybe you have testimonials on the right, you have a guarantee here, you have a minimalistic credit card entry. There's this other section that pops open with coupons and other things like that. Then after that screen, there's this other wireframe that shows the welcome, congratulations, start here, view your course now. So in that case, you're creating a wireframe for each stage of the customer journey. Next, you may want to use several wireframes to show what your particular screen looks like on different devices. This is called responsive web design. So you may want to have a design for the desktop, a really large, typical computer screen with a big window, or even a tablet that has slightly less space and is constrained, or even a mobile phone, and thinking about what does it look like vertically or horizontally. Depending on what you're doing, you may want to have that. You may want to just have the essentials, like here's the desktop and here's the vertical mobile view. Or you may want to go to that next stage. Depending on what platforms you're using, some of this already happens naturally. But nevertheless, you're going to want to have that high level layout. what's at the top, what's at the middle, what's on the bottom, what's on the sides, and figure out and have an idea of what your design will look like on all the different devices. Now, to create wireframes, you can use some generic tools that you know. These are like Word document editors or slides, presentation views, and just put some boxes there. And generic tools could even be design programs, Photoshop, Illustrator, Figma, etc. These are programs that can draw. You can manipulate the shape of squares to make them rounded, and that button and all this sort of stuff. If you're not a designer by trade, you're creative, but maybe you're a maker, or maybe you're working with AV or writing, etc. If you don't want to use generic tools, you can get tools that just focus on creating wireframes. They have all the different stencils, all the different shapes of every single standard component. Here's an image, here's a text box, here's a button, here's an edit control. And that makes it really easy to drag and drop, create your layout, whether you're doing it or you're collaborating with a designer and they're doing it, or you're just chiming in. It's almost like if you were sketching on a napkin, high level, big stuff. Here's an image, here's some text, here's this video area, here's the navigation bar where I choose the lesson. You're just choosing those big things, but it's just so much easier with a digital tool. So if you're super comfortable with existing tools that are generic, that's cool. Again, you're just putting boxes and things like that around the screen, or you can go ahead and get a wireframing tool that's dedicated for this. And by the way, it could help you with other things too, like if you're doing a site layout or an org chart or other things like that. Finally, once you have those wireframes, share with the team, export them, right? As a JPEG, PNG, a PDF, share them, get feedback. Maybe even you might have a couple of special friendly customers that you might want to share with. Hey, what do you think? Does this look complicated, easy? Is there anything missing? Yeah, get that feedback, collaborate with your partners, and whether you're creating design or they're creating the design, you can mark up, you can provide feedback verbally, and then review that workflow from beginning to end. Beyond that one screen, think about the several screens that go along with different stages, different needs, or different flows that happen in your business. Now let's check out a tutorial about the essential wireframing components. These are all the components that you would typically find on a good wireframe. First of all, you might have different images. The images might just be expressed with just a box with an X in it. But you're going to really define, is it a little image like a thumbnail, or is it a wide banner at the top of the screen that's a big long rectangle? But nevertheless, you're going to have these images identified. Where are they? Are they all the way to the ends of the screen, or are they padded? If you have a logo or an icon, you don't need the final image. You just need to know that there's a little image there, a little shape here. You're going to go work that out, but you're just trying to see the big blueprint for your page or your interface. The same thing if you have video or audio. You're just going to have a big box that has like a play button, and you just trying to understand, is it a big video that they have to maximize, or is it a medium video because maybe it's a sizzle reel, or maybe you're in the course and right away it's a very large video box and they just press play, or maybe it auto starts. You don't have to get into that. You just know that on that particular course page, there's lessons on the left and a big video box in the middle. And the same thing with hyperlinks. You don't need, to have the exact text that you're going to have for a hyperlink. You might just have some text with an underscore line. It might not even be blue. It might just be a text with an underline, and you're like, oh yeah, there's a hyperlink there. That's it. Same thing with boxes that have edit controls. You might put a little text of what it is, like box with email. You don't have to get into the style of the box or the edit control or the font that's there or the color of it. That's all later. You're just trying to figure out what should be on the screen. And the same for other things like drop-down list boxes or buttons. You could just have a shape that looks like a button, and you could call it button. If you want, you could just say buy for now, even though later you might change that buy to start now, exclamation point. And that's fine. But at least for now, on that initial wireframe, you have a button and it's just buy, right? Just to get it going. And you might have containers. You might list out your different elements on your wireframe, or you could put them in sections or groups on your screen. In there, you can have radio buttons or a text with a button or whatever. Maybe you don't have containers. So, and you just have sections of your page, the left side, the middle, things like that, or top, middle, bottom, and that's fine too. But as you get a little further and you're like, ooh, I need this little group of items over here on the right, that's okay. You can have a little section, a little container, and that'll at least remind you, okay, I have this little box over here that has some stuff. Now, when you have headings, you don't have to figure out your perfect hook line. You're just going to have either a bar, or you might have literally a text that says heading, and that's it. And the same thing with paragraphs. You don't have to write it. You can copy paste some standard lorem ipsum Latin text, or you could just have these squiggly lines that lets you know, hey, there's 4 or 5 rows of text there, and that's going to be a paragraph of stuff that I will write later. Sometimes in wireframes, you might want to, if you're not using sections, you can stack items, or you can use horizontal bars. Again, you don't have to worry about how thick the bar is, what color gray or shading, or whether it's rounded. You're just going to have a line, just a nice little bar. That's all you need. You get it. You're figuring out your big architecture on your screen, on your user experience. So that's good enough. Now, when you have labels, you might just have a word there. You could literally put label, or if you want to, you could just put some simple stuff, name, password. The same thing with edit boxes, that you can have small edit boxes that people type one line, or a big edit box where maybe they're typing a review or they're going to type some notes, and that's fine. Just put a box there with a couple of squiggly lines or some generic text, and that's it. You know what goes there and you'll figure it out, but at least you're knowing how wide is it? How big is it? Is there other stuff? Do you have a tooltip that has some other text below it or on the side? That's what you need to figure out your wireframe. And then depending on the wireframing tool, you might have additional controls like checkboxes, search bars, progress bars, spinners up and down, or even navigation, next page, prior page, and next page, right? If your wireframing tool might have advanced versions of generic images. So instead of just a box with the square, if you know you need a profile, there might be a profile picture. If not, that's okay. You can just simply use a box with an X, and you know that there's a little image there. The same thing for other stuff, like you might need ratings and reviews. If you have a wireframing tool that has ratings and reviews, great. If not, put 4 little image boxes there, or 1 horizontal rectangle, and type stars. And then the same thing for menus, whether you're doing a header at the top of your main menu, right? Whether you're designing a web page that has a massive main menu, or inside your community, you might have a sidebar that has all the rooms. Again, you can put a bunch of text labels there. If your wireframing tool has a vertical menu, you can put that. So don't worry about it. The point is to identify what are the major items on your screen. If you want to level up, basically use simple stencil components, just like a stencil that you get at Hobby Lobby or Joann's that has shapes, right? Triangles and hexagons and things like that, flowchart type things. Just use basic components depending on your tool, right? You could be in PowerPoint or Google Slides, or you might use a proper wireframing tool. That's fine. You'll have more advanced stencils. Just use these basic components to lay out the most important elements on your screen. That's it. Doing that alone will just give you so much clarity on like, what's the purpose of this screen? What are the main elements, without getting caught up into the exact text and the colors and all that stuff. That'll happen. It'll be later, but you'll save yourself so many iterations by just laying out your screens with simple components. So let's summarize. Wireframes are low fidelity blueprints, just like an architecture plan for your house. Big boxes, what goes where. It has all the key elements that you need, the heading, the image, the buttons, things like that. By using wireframes, you're going to work faster and cost effectively. Instead of thrashing later and doing multiple cycles because you're iterating so much, you have a high level plan that everybody can align to. And once you have that wireframe, you can then dispatch it to different people, to graphic design, to your coders, to your writers, etc. At least you can hone in and you've identified the big buckets and the most essential things for web pages or learning interfaces. Again, don't focus on the detailed text, which image, what's the label and the button. Just go ahead and put the boxes. And with that, you're going to have a high level plan. And with that plan, you're going to be able to build out whatever your e-learning solution is so that you can help those creative students with coaching or courses or community. So now you're a lot smarter in creating wireframes. To learn more, check out the info and links in the notes. If you're loving this stuff, subscribe to keep leveling up your creative business. And if you need any tech help with your courses, community, or teacher website, visit www.rtcoursexperts.com. Thanks for hanging out. Let's stay in touch.